we know that we use much with singular uncountable nouns. For example, much money. We use many with plural countable nouns, many people. A lot of and lots of, they are interchangeable. We can use them for singular, plural, countable, uncountable, doesn't matter. It just sounds a little bit more informal compared to much and many, right? So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to use much of and many of. The first one I'm going to talk about is much and many though. So what we can say here, in a more formal or academic environment, either in speech or in writing, preferably in writing, we tend to use much and many, or much of and many of. So look at the part in blue. We can say a large, a substantial, and a considerable, plus amount of, plus an uncountable noun. For example, a large amount of money, a substantial amount of money, a considerable amount of money. We could say that, right? Or instead, we could just say much money. So I could say a considerable amount of time was dedicated to the painting, or much time was dedicated to the painting. Now, it just sounds a little bit more formal if you say much time, as if we were to compare it to, for example, a lot of time was dedicated, or lots of time. It sounds a lot more informal. By using much time, it sounds more formal and more academic. If we want to use many, we can say a large, a substantial, a considerable number of, and then a plural noun, okay? Or we can just say many. For example, a substantial number of people attended the ceremony, or many people attended the ceremony. Now, of course, you could just say lots of people attended the ceremony, or a lot of people attended the ceremony. You could do that. But by using many people attended the ceremony, sounds a bit more formal, more academic. Now, you're probably thinking, right, Emma, so you gave 2 examples there using much and many, but you didn't talk about, thank you for the super chat. I always forget about that. Thank you. Thanks for the class. Oh, you're very welcome. So here, for example, when we use of and we say much of, many of, notice my pronunciation there, that I'm not saying much of, many of, and I'm saying much of, many of. I'm using the weak form of, right? We use of with much and many before articles, demonstratives, possessives, and pronouns. Don't know why that was difficult to get out then. Here, for example, you've got much of his books. I cannot read. Much of his book was about his childhood. Or I could say a lot of his book was about his childhood, but it sounds more formal to use much of his book was about his childhood. Or many of the staff members were misbehaving while working. Yeah? Instead of a lot of the staff members, many of the staff members sounds a bit more formal. So just to reiterate and repeat, if you want to say much of and many of, you need to use an article, a demonstrative, a possessive, or a pronoun. So here, for example, many of people attended the wedding. Nope, doesn't work. We need to have an article or something there. So I could say many of the people and add the. Many of the people attended the wedding, and that makes it fine because now we're using an article. Make sense? How are we doing in the chat? People aren't looking too confused and they're just saying hello still. So that's really good. So the next thing, we can use much and many as pronouns. Now, this is something that's quite new to people and it's something that's confused my students. So in more formal contexts and academic contexts, you may see much and many used as a pronoun. For example, I don't know whether he will pass the exam. Much depends on whether he's willing to study or not, compared to it depends on whether he's willing to study or not. By saying much instead of it sounds a bit more formal. The same with the second example. Many believe that the newspaper stories were untrue. I'm basically replacing many people. Many people believed that the newspapers. Remove the people. I can just use many as the pronoun. Many believe that the newspaper stories were untrue. The thing is that you do have to be careful, because if you say many ate the food, okay? I don't know what the many talks about. You need to make sure that there's some context around it. Is it the many animals? Is it the many people? What is many that we're talking about here? So do be careful when you use it, because you need to make sure that you're referring to something that you've already said, or you need to make sure that it's kind of obvious from the context what the many could be about. You know, here, many believe that the newspaper stories weren't true. Well, I'm not going to think it's many animals, because animals don't read newspapers, right? I would assume that it's people. So yeah, that explains that one. Be careful if you use it as a pronoun. Then, using the or possessive pronouns with many. We're going to talk about many a lot in this lesson. So we can use the and a possessive pronoun with many and plural countable nouns. For example, the museum featured his many detailed sketches. So you got his, the possessive pronoun, many, not much, okay? You cannot do much with this one. You can only use many. So if it was something like, my much money, something like that, it just wouldn't work. You couldn't do it, right? You can only do this structure with many. It doesn't work with much. The museum featured his possessive pronoun, many. We can't use much in any context, only many with this kind of structure. And then the plural countable noun, his sketches. If you're not sure what sketches are, they're very quick drawings that you do. They're not super, I don't want to say they're not super detailed, but I mean, it's like a drawing, a very quick drawing normally. The many famous sculptures of Henry Moore were displayed in his gallery. So the many, using the many, because remember we can't use much at all here, we always use many. Famous sculptures. Sculptures is a plural noun, so it fits. Okay? Any questions so far? It's a bit complex. Well, I did warn you it was an advanced grammar lesson. The majority of the people or the majority of people? Both work, but it depends on the context. The majority of the people is specific, but the majority of people in general, right? If you use the, it tends to be something more specific. No other questions though, that's great. I'm really sorry if I do miss any of your questions though, guys, but the chat goes quite quickly sometimes. So let's go on to many a. Now, this is the one that really catches people out, and it's only used in very formal situations, okay? So here, I didn't finish that. I think I just wanted a full stop there. There we go. So here, thanks for another super chat. Suppose for Chris, hello! That's so cool. So here, I'm lost now. I got distracted by the super chat. Thanks, Chris. No, genuinely, thank you. It's really kind. So here, we can use many a or many un. So if you're not sure how to use a and un, then you need to go and have a look at my lesson on that, because it's a bit more basic. I'm going to assume that you understand when to use a and un, because this is an advanced lesson, okay? We can use many a or many un with a singular noun to talk about repeated events or a large number of things. So this sounds more formal than just saying many. For example, many a man has tried to climb Mount Everest. Many an expert advises us to exercise every week. Now, this is a really, really odd structure, but if we kind of, I don't want to say translate it, but if we translate it into everyday speech and not formal speech, it would be like saying, many men have tried. Okay, so you could just say, many men have tried to climb Mount Everest, but if you want to sound more formal, you can say, many a man has tried to climb Mount Everest. Same with the expert one. Many experts advise us to exercise every week, but if you want to sound more formal, many an expert advises us to exercise every week. So this use of many-a and many-an is the same as many, exactly the same use as many, but it's more formal. All right, so if you see it, you know what it means this time. A great, good, many. Another one that's a bit confusing. So we can use a great many or a good many with a plural noun. It sounds very formal. Same as the last one that we just looked at. So I have a great many friends in Spain, or I have a good many friends in Spain. The difference between I have many friends in Spain and I have a great/good many friends in Spain is that many just sounds more everyday. Doesn't sound formal or anything like that. So if you use a great many or a good many, one, it sounds very formal or academic, and two, it's also a good way to emphasize the number of friends, the number of the thing you have. So I don't just have many friends, I have a great many friends, okay? But it does sound a little bit odd if it's not used in a formal environment, okay? Any questions about that? Oh, people are really shocked by this one. I know, it's a weird one, isn't it? English grammar's so weird. What does the sentence mean? There are a lot of sculptures displayed. So a sculpture is like a piece of art, a piece of 3D art that you create, and they were displayed, they were shown. It was in the gallery, right? So Henry Moore's sculptures, the 3D things he made, the pieces of art, were put in the gallery. They were displayed, they were shown in the gallery. Good question. I have tried to use some more advanced vocabulary in this lesson too, so get your dictionaries ready, guys. Any other questions? Yeah, it's odd. Why do we try difficult structure? Whoa! Oh my goodness, what's happening to me? Why do we try difficult structures when we can use easy ones? Because there are two types of language, right? Informal and formal. I mean, you also have neutral. But imagine you want to write in a very formal way or an academic way. You're going to change your language. It's going to be very different to how you speak if you're down in the pub with your friends, right? So there's two different types of language we're looking at. It's fair enough if you want to leave this lesson right now because you think, I don't need this. I'm never going to speak in a formal environment, and that's fine. But I know that many people are preparing for exams, or they're preparing to go to university, or they're in a context at work, for example, where they need formal English, and this lesson will be very, very, very useful to these people. But for some people, it probably won't be, and that's fine. Not all my lessons are everyone's cup of tea. You know, that's the beauty. You pick and choose which lessons you feel will be useful to you. Any other questions before we move on? I think I've got two more. Oh no, I've got a little bit more to expand on this one, and then I've got one more. My level's B1, but I understand you 100%. Yes, that's great. Do they speak it in everyday language? It depends, Olivia, it depends. Imagine you work in an academic environment, or you work in an environment where you need to be extremely formal. Maybe you're a solicitor, a lawyer, right? And you need to speak in a very formal way. Then yes, you will use these every day. Maybe you're a professor in a university. Yes, you will use these every day. But if you're working in a supermarket, or you're working in an office, normal office, for example, no, you're probably not going to use this kind of language. So it depends. It all depends. That's the beauty of language, is that it's so versatile, and you can pick and choose what parts of the language you want to use and need to use. Can't we say, I have many great friends? Yeah, you can. Aha. But, Laden, I'm really sorry if I mispronounced your name. Pronunciation with Emma. Can't pronounce names. Anyway, that means something different. If I say, I have a great many friends in Spain, it means I have a big quantity, a big number of friends in Spain. If I say what you said, I have many great friends in Spain, now the great becomes an adjective describing friends. Okay? Now I'm saying, I have many amazing friends. My friends are so amazing in Spain. That's what I'm saying when I say your sentence. But if I say this one, I'm not talking about how excellent my friends are. I'm talking about the quantity of friends. I'm saying I have a lot of friends, basically. That's what I'm saying with the sentence. But it's very formal. I suppose that these forms are used in England, not the USA. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not American. I cannot be a representative of American English or the USA. I really don't know. It's better to ask an American teacher. I'm going to assume that they do. I'm going to assume that they do. The thing is that many people assume that with British English, it's more formal than American English, and that's not true. It's not true. With every language, you have formal, and you have neutral, and you have informal, right? It's the same with British English. We don't go around speaking like this all the time. If I spoke like this, and I said, oh, I have a great many friends in Spain, down in the pub with my friends, they'd be like, Emma, what the... Why are you saying that? Why don't you just say you have a lot? They would look at me a bit strange. So, yeah, to answer your question, I don't know. That's the short answer to your question. I make a great many friends in the UK. Yeah, it works well. Good. Could we use a negative of a great many? I don't have a great many. Yeah, you could. You could negate it before, so I don't have a great many. Yeah. Why don't we use great many and not great many is not for singulars. Oh, I'm not sure I understand your question. Sorry. Do we use a great many and not great... Oh, yeah, I just answered that. Yeah, we do. Sorry. Is it the same if we say, I have a great amount of friends in Spain? Yeah, you could as well. Or a great number, a great quantity. What was that? A great quantity of friends, you could say. But, yeah, that sounds really odd, really formal. I have a large quantity of friends in Spain. Yeah. Yeah, I know, Demia, but I stopped myself. You got to think of that monetization. Got to get my 50p from this live stream. Anyway, let's carry on, guys. So, just to carry on from the a good many friends thing, for emphasis and for higher quantities, so imagine if I had more friends, okay, I can say a great or a good deal of with singular and uncountable nouns. So, here, for example, I can say a great deal of the time I work, sorry, that was read with terrible intonation. A great deal of the time I work is spent on creating content on YouTube to help people, okay? So a great deal of the time I work means a lot of the time I work is spent on creating content, okay? It's another way of saying a lot of the time that I work, much of the time I work. And then the last thing I want to talk about is using far. Now, what I see is a lot of students when they're writing academic or formal texts to practice for whatever reason, they tend to make this mistake of saying much too many or many too many or much too much. Like, they're not too sure how to construct this. So what we use here is we say far too many, meaning there's too much, there's too many, okay? We can use far too many with plural and countable nouns, like the other rules, doesn't change, and far too much with uncountable nouns. So far too many people waste time on social media. It's just like saying too many people waste time on social media. It's exactly the same, but by adding the far, it emphasizes the quantity, let's say. So it sounds like there's way more. So far too many people, it's like a lot. Compared to just too many is way more, okay? And far too much attention is given to people who don't deserve it. Same thing. Instead of saying too much attention is given, by saying far too much attention is given, it raises the quantity, okay? It's not just too much, it's far too much, yeah? Or far too many. So that's that.